Mira always believed that big changes came from big moves. New city, new job, big goals, loud effort. She kept waiting for the moment when motivation would hit, when something inside her would finally snap and push her forward. But that moment never came. She would start things with excitement and burn out within days. New journals left half empty. Workout routines dropped after a week. Ideas she loved, slowly forgotten. One evening, she visited her grandmother, who was planting tiny green shoots into small pots on the windowsill. "They won't grow overnight," the old woman said, without being asked. "But they will grow." Mira smiled, but something in those words stayed with her. Later that night, she sat at her desk with a blank notebook and a tired mind. She didn't plan a whole transformation. She didn't write goals. She just wrote one sentence. "Tomorrow, I will stretch for 5 minutes." No big expectations, no big dreams, just one thing. And for the first time in a long time, it felt real. Because maybe the shift doesn't begin with everything. Maybe it begins with something small enough to keep. The next morning, Mira woke up, groggy and unmotivated. Her mind instantly went to the usual checklist of things she should do. Work out, read, meditate, clean. She felt the familiar weight of that invisible pressure settle on her shoulders. But then she remembered the one line in her notebook. Stretch for 5 minutes. That was it. So she stood up, pulled out her yoga mat, and moved slowly. Her body was stiff. Her mind was still foggy. But she stretched. Not gracefully. Not like the videos online. Just enough. And when the timer beeped at 5 minutes, she stopped. No extra. No guilt. Just done. She didn't feel transformed, but she felt different. Like a door had opened inside her. Small, but real. The next day, she did it again. Same stretch. Same 5 minutes. And slowly, without planning to, she added one more thing. Drinking a glass of water right after. Not because she had to, but because it felt natural. Like the stretch had made room for something new. And that was the beginning of everything. After a week, Mira's routine looked slightly different. She still stretched for 5 minutes, still drank a glass of water, and now she was journaling a few lines each night, just a quick reflection, nothing deep. None of these things were dramatic. She didn't post about them. She didn't even tell her friends. But something inside her was shifting. She noticed her mornings felt less rushed. Her mind was less scattered, and for the first time, she didn't feel like she was chasing change. She felt like she was growing into it. One afternoon, her coworker asked, "How are you staying so calm lately? Did something happen?" Mira thought about it for a moment and replied, "I just started doing one thing I could actually keep up with." The coworker laughed. "That's it?" Mira smiled. That's where it started. That night, she wrote in her journal, "Small doesn't mean weak. Small means possible, and possible becomes powerful if you stay with it." Because now she understood. You don't have to move mountains. You just have to move daily, gently forward. A few weeks later, Mira missed a morning. She woke up late, skipped her stretch, forgot her water. By noon, her focus was off. Her energy felt scattered. Old doubts started creeping in. For a moment, she thought, maybe I've broken the streak. Maybe it's over. But that evening, she remembered something her grandmother once said while tending her plants. Missing a day doesn't kill the plant. Not watering it again does. So Mira didn't restart everything. She didn't rewrite a new routine. She just stretched for 5 minutes before bed, then drank a small glass of water, then closed her eyes, proud, because she had returned. Not out of guilt, but out of rhythm. Not for perfection, but for presence. The next day she felt stronger, not because of the habit, but because of her recovery, and that became her new confidence. Not in never falling off, but in knowing how to come back. She wrote in her journal, "The power isn't in starting. The power is in returning, even after life gets messy." And in that quiet, she realized, this wasn't a streak. It was a way of being. Over time, Mira stopped calling them habits. They didn't feel like items on a checklist anymore. Stretching, water, writing. They had become her way of anchoring. When the day was heavy, she stretched. When her mind was loud, she wrote. When she felt lost, she returned to the small. One morning, while visiting her grandmother again, Mira helped her replant a few herbs. She asked, "How do you keep track of all these plants? Doesn't it get overwhelming?" Her grandmother smiled. "I don't think about the whole garden at once. I just water the one in front of me." That line stayed with Mira all day. It reminded her that focus doesn't require perfection. It only asks for presence. That night, she lit a small candle, placed her journal beside it, and wrote, "One action, every day, not to fix myself, but to stay with myself." And that was the real transformation. Not changing her whole life in a week, but choosing not to disappear from her own life, even on the small days. A few months later, Mira met an old friend for coffee. They talked about life, stress, burnout. Her friend sighed and said, "I just feel like I'm behind all the time, like everyone else is doing more." Mira nodded. She knew that feeling well. But instead of giving advice, she shared a piece of paper from her notebook. It had a sentence on it, one she had written on the first day of this journey. "Tomorrow, I will stretch for 5 minutes." Her friend looked at it, confused. "That's it?" "That's where it began," Mira said. And everything else followed. They sat in silence for a while. No rush, no urgency. Later that night, Mira didn't feel like doing anything big. So she did what she always did. Stretched, drank water, wrote a line. Not because she had to, because that small act reminded her who she was becoming. And in a world that pushes us to move fast, fix everything, and achieve more, she had found her power in one small, quiet, daily choice.